Hello, amazing entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 341, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/341. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you how to build an epic business network. This is so important, and you know the saying in business, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in online business, that's even more true. So we need to get about building your business network so that you can experience the amazing benefits, including making more money, getting more clients, fast tracking your business growth, and more. Let's dive in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart Centered Business Podcast. First and foremost, I want to say that particularly for heart-centered entrepreneurs, for people who are very empathic, for people who may be introverted, we can resist leaning in to this idea of building a network because networking of old felt a bit yucky. And it feels like it's very transactional. We're using other people. And so for us, as sometimes for women, for non-binary folk, for people who've been marginalized, for people who've experienced being used before, we don't lean into this concept of building our business network as readily. And in fact, we resist it, thinking that building your network or doing any kind of networking is literally just looking for people to use. And so we can miss out on some of the amazing benefits that come from having a great network, from connecting with people. And it's very similar to resistance to marketing. So just like I talk about consent-based marketing as a way to resolve resistance to marketing, because the problem is not marketing, the problem is the way that you've seen people market or the way that you've been marketed to. And actually, if you create a marketing approach that's consent-based and that's very heart-centered, you aren't as resistant to marketing because you're not doing those things to other people. So just like that same analogy, it's the same with networking. The problem is not networking. The problem is the way that mostly straight white dudes have role modeled networking before. The old boys club, networking was seen as very exclusionary rather than the thing that it could be for us, which is creating an amazing posse of biz besties and friends and referrers and people that we can come to be supported, but also people we can support. And ultimately, if you see networking as a two-way exchange and recognize that you're going to build a network that is based on it being beneficial to both sides, then that can help overcome a lot of that resistance to networking in the first place. My approach when it comes to networking is who can I help rather than what can I get from my network. I want to find more and more people that I can help. It's reflected in the way that I go to events. So if you ever go to a conference or a networking event or a business lunch or a business brunch with me, and I do this a lot, I will want to go to a business networking event, but I don't really want to go on my own. Even though I'm a raging extrovert, I don't love going to things on my own where I don't know a single person. I'll buy 4 tickets and then just say, does anyone want to come with me? I recruit my little posse. But even when I go on my own, the first thing I do when I walk in the door is I focus on who am I going to help to build their network here today? So I don't even build my network by going, who can I add to my network? I build my network by going, who can I help to build their network? So I often will adopt the most introverted person in the room. If there's someone standing in the corner with their cup of tea going, I've got no friends, that is the person I take under my wing. I'm an introvert adopter, I call myself. I'll take that person under my wing. I'll go up and approach them because I can see they're really shy. So I'll go and approach them. I'll have a little convo. And one of the first questions I'll ask is, why are you here today? What did you want to get out of this today? And I remember when I first moved to the Sunshine Coast, I went to a bunch of networking events and business dinners and breakfasts and all that kind of thing. And I went to this event and I met this amazing lady. She was a bookkeeper and a tax accountant. And I did the same thing. She was standing in the corner. Invariably, there's always someone standing at the side with their cup of tea. She was standing on her own with her cup of tea. And she was multitasking. She was looking at her phone and on having her cup of tea. So both hands were full. She was like, no, I'm not lonely. Everything's fine. But I could see that she was looking a little awkward. So I went over to have a chat with her. And she said, well, actually, I want to start working with more women entrepreneurs and people who have solo businesses. So they don't necessarily have like huge, big budgets and huge, big turnovers, but we can make a lot of gains for them from a tax perspective and from, setting business goals and getting, more and more income coming in. I really love working with people who have a lot of potential in their business. And I was like, great, let's do that. So I said, let's go and meet some people together. And we went and walked around the room and I was like, oh, have you met this person? She's such a great accountant. She's really great with like really small businesses, and like did the introduction for her. And what that meant was, number one, she became a very, very strong biz bestie of mine for a very long time. We're still great friends today. But also, I was able to enter circles. Even though I'm an extrovert, I don't love breaking up a circular conversation going, hey everyone, I'm here, because it feels really self-centered, right? It's that whole it feels yucky because I'm like interrupting everyone because I want to be part of this conversation. But if I interrupt the circle to introduce someone, it feels far easier for me. So when we look at networking as a way to support other people as much as it is a way to get support ourselves, I think that really helps to overcome some of that resistance. And in addition to just helping you get over the resistance to networking, if this is something that you want to do, because it is very beneficial for your business, I've got 10 tips on how you can build an epic business network for you today in the podcast. So let's get into those 10 ways. Number one, be giving. And give first. That is exactly the demonstration that I gave you with talking about that event that I went to. So if I have people in my industry or biz besties that I would love to have more of a connection with, or I see someone who's doing something and I'm like, ooh, really fascinated by what they're doing, I will find ways to be giving first. So it might be inviting them onto my podcast and saying, oh, I just read this book and I'd love to share that with my audience. Can I interview you on my podcast and put you on the stage? So that's giving them, increased audience and exposure and probably book sales and all of those sorts of things. So when I start a relationship from that perspective, one, it feels far easier for me and less awkward. Two, they're far more likely to be cool with that and into it. And three, I feel like we create a relationship based on that reciprocity or that mutual benefit, because I'm not attached to getting anything in return. Just being able to interview them for my podcast and ask them questions about their business is return for me. So that's a great way for me. If you don't have a podcast, you could do a YouTube interview series, or you could do some Facebook Lives, invite them onto Instagram Live with you, lots of different things. Now, not everyone is going to say yes, but that's a great way for me to feel like I'm giving first when I'm creating a relationship. There are other ways that you can be giving first as well, though. You could be giving by providing some feedback on something or giving them a shout out. If there are people that I would really love to have as part of my network, I tag them several times, giving them praise, or I'll share something that they shared because I loved what they shared. So I will share it with my audience and make sure that I've tagged them when I've done that. That is creating momentum for them, but it also is building this beautiful relationship. So be giving and give first is my piece of advice. I know that might feel like you're always giving and never receiving in return, but that is rarely the case. And the more that you have a belief that, well, I'm always giving and never get anything in return, the more that you collect evidence of that, and the more that you make that true, you're manifesting that reality. So, you may like to use some affirmations around I'm very generous and giving to my network, and I receive beautiful benefits in return. And just take that as your belief instead of I never get anything in return. Because the more that you decide you never get anything in return, the less you're going to get in return. So number one, be giving, give first. Number two, be intentional. Now, this is an important one. Because of the way that I approach building my network, I don't want to be spending 20 hours a week on building my network. So I need to be intentional about who and what I'm doing and how much I give and why I might be expanding my network in a certain way. Now, let me give you some ideas of how this intentionality might show up. Number one, you might go to some networking events and 95% of the people there are not your kinds of people. Well, then don't go again. Don't do it. Be intentional. Don't have FOMO that you're going to miss out on that 5% because by saying yes to going to that one again, you're saying no to something else. So be intentional by the rooms that you're going to be in. Be intentional about the types of people that you're going to approach. I intentionally, when I first started my business, did not reach out to super big names and leaders in the industry. I started with people a couple of steps ahead of me because those people were far more likely to say yes to an interview with someone with a smaller audience than them. An interview with someone who they didn't know. They were far more likely to say, to see me as a peer after our first couple of interactions than someone who was miles ahead and the most famous person in the industry. But as my business grew and as my success grew, so did the level, not level as in person's level, but business level, that I would be approaching. So I became far more confident in inviting bigger names onto my podcast because I had already done 150 episodes of my podcast and I had consistent 2,000 to 3,000 people per episode listening. So of course, I felt far more confident then in reaching out to some of those bigger names. I think sometimes we try and go too big too soon. We get 1,000 rejections and we make it mean that no one in the industry is willing to be friends with us or to collaborate or wants to be part of something that's helping someone else out. But that's not the case. It's just that you haven't necessarily been intentional about who it is that you're approaching, the rooms that you're going to be in, and also like whether this feels like it's a fair and equal energetic exchange as well. So number two is be intentional. Number three, release your expectations and reduce the pressure. Take the pressure down, as John Farnham says, because the more pressure that you put, even if it's internally, on getting some kind of return, the more tense you'll be about building that network. And also, the more you collect, you'll be collecting evidence that people don't give back. And we don't want to muddy your perception of people in your industry or the network that you're building simply because a couple of people let you down. So hold it very lightly and release the expectation that every single relationship is going to be perfectly balanced in terms of benefit. Sometimes the benefit that I get from being giving to one person comes back in value coming back from another person. It's not always like 50% your way, 50% my way with every single individual. Instead of looking at things individually, I look at it as like a cloud. My network is not a series of one-to-one relationships. It's a big cloudy, webby thing. That means that sometimes things take a little while to come back around, or sometimes things go through someone else to come back around. So a great example of this is I had a lovely relationship with someone who I really admired and respected in the industry, and I never really had any expectation of return from them. I did a couple of, shout outs to them. I had them on my podcast. I then promoted their book when they did a book launch, and they never really said like, oh, is there anything I can do for you? Or they never really reshared anything that I shared. That was fine because I didn't put any pressure on it. I didn't have any expectations. And then I had a $10,000 VIP client sign up to work with me. It was probably 9 months later. And in their first session, in the sales call, I forgot to ask. So in their first session, I said, oh, just quickly, how did you hear about me? And they said, oh, well, I asked that person if they would mentor me, and they said they don't do one-to-one mentoring, but they recommended you. And so I went and checked out your website and your podcast, and I booked in a sales call. And so it wasn't a direct return on investment, but it was a return on investment of my time. And you never know what people are saying about you or the kind things that people are sharing about you out there in the universe. So release those expectations, take the pressure down. We don't need to have everything be exactly equal in terms of, giving versus receiving in your network. And for me, I just aim to be more giving. That if I focus on the more I give, the more I'm going to get in return anyway. But if I can't control how much I get in return. So if I just focus on being super giving, then I know energetically and, karmically, it's all going to come back to me at some point. And so that helps me to release those expectations, particularly on an individual basis as well. All right, number 4, which kind of relates to being intentional, is quality over quantity. Another example from a networking event that I went to, there were a bunch of people who were going around and asking for people's business cards. Oh, who are you? Da, da, da. Do you have a business card? And they'd take your business card. Okay, and no meaningful conversation with anyone. They were just card collectors. And of course, the next day, I get an email from 6 different dudes saying, oh my gosh, it was so amazing to meet you yesterday, blah, 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 blah. Maybe we should have coffee. And I didn't even remember which one was which, because we hadn't had any depth of conversation. Yes, they'd collected my card, but did that actually mean that there was any benefit to us catching up later? I don't know. And I wasn't particularly interested. So no card. If I don't have a meaningful conversation with someone, but they take my card and then follow up with me and say, we should have a coffee. I rarely say yes to those, unless they, do a bit of research and, talking about something that I can see that they see that that's meaningful for me or something along those lines. It's very rare that I would actually meet up with a card collector. Sure, I'll give you my card, but that doesn't mean that there were also ones, by the way, who collected up cards and then just added us all to their mailing list. That's illegal, by the way. But anyway, they never said, give me your card and I'll add you to my mailing list. I did not give consent to that. Anyway, so they definitely instant unsubscribe, never going to talk to you again, kind of a little bit blacklisted in my book. But anyway, so don't be a card collector. And actually, one of the things that I also do when I go to networking events and stuff now is I don't have cards. So the reason why I don't have cards most of the time, I do have them here and there for like larger scale events, but not for like networking events or anything like that. Now, the reason why I do that is because if I'm having a conversation with someone and I think, oh, I think we should take this relationship further, I just open up my calendar. I just say, we should have a coffee, right? Like, oh, it sounds like we could really help each other. Do you want to have a coffee? Get your calendar out. Because if I give them my card, it's in their hands. I have to wait for them to email me. Or even if we swap cards, it's then that like weird, like, am I emailing you or are you emailing me? What's going on? And also it's just easy for it to fall down the priority list. So I stopped taking cards quite a few years ago now, and I actually did it through the lens of forcing myself to have deeper conversations. Because what I noticed was when I took cards to events, invariably someone would say, do you have a card? And I would go, yes, I do, and give it to them. And then that was always the end of the conversation. And I didn't, the quality over quantity thing. I didn't want to go to an event and dish out as many cards as possible. I wanted to build meaningful relationships. And so being able to say, oh, actually, no, I don't have cards. But if you have one, I'm happy to take it. And so I'd take their card and then I'd ask them questions about themselves. And I could then be like, make sure that the conversation just didn't end at the card exchange, that we actually did some digging into, tell me about yourself, tell me what your business is like, what are you looking to get out of this event today? You know, how could someone like me help you with your business? You know, those types of things. And then if I'm excited about it, let's book it in. Let's book in a Zoom chat. I'd rather that we get out. Everyone has their calendar on their phone. So I'd rather we just get our phones out and lock something in. Those relationships are far more likely to be deep quickly. We're far more likely to find ways that we can help each other. And I've got quality over quantity. So don't be a card collector and don't be a card thrower-outerer, right? Don't just go and throw out as many cards as possible. I used to work in a consulting firm and that we used to be measured based on that. How many cards did you get and how many cards did you give? And I got reprimanded once for a big event where I only gave out 5 cards and I only got 6 cards from other people. And, you know, this person had 50 cards. This person got out 45 cards. And I was like, yeah, great. Let's see the extent to which each of us develop relationships that result in income for the business. And my 5 cards that I gave out, my 5 deep relationships, all turned into clients, all 5 of them. And so, you know, it still to this day flabbergasts me that the owner of the business couldn't see the benefit of that, but that's all right. We were always just measured on quantity, not quality. And for me, as an entrepreneur and business owner myself now, I would rather spend less time on quality relationships than fill my calendar with a bunch of meaningless coffee dates that never go anywhere or that end up in a little bit of a stalemate. Have you ever gone to a coffee catch up after a networking event and realized they just want to sell to you? They're not interested in getting to know you as a person. They're not interested in helping you other than if you pay them. I had so many of those in my early days of doing networking stuff. And so I think that's why that's created this quality over quantity approach for me, because I'm not a time waster. I like to be very efficient. I'm a very lazy person. And so, you know, going out there and getting a bra on and going and meeting with people when they are not interested in building a meaningful relationship, I'm not into it. So quality over quantity, number 4. Number 5, set up a system so that you're reconnecting and touching base regularly. If you're going to go to the effort of building your network, ensure that you nurture that network, just like you would nurture your audience when people first join your list. Nurture leads coming into your business. Networks need to be nurtured as well. So something that I do is I have a little like network database and I just review it once a month and touch base with people that I haven't touched base with in a while. And I can do it. I love using the Pomodoro method. So I always talk about 1 POM. A Pomodoro method is where you work in 25-minute sprints and then with a 5-minute break. So 1 POM is 25-minute work sprint. And in 1 POM, I can nurture and touch base with 30 to 50 people in my network because it's systemized and it's really easy for me to see when was our last contact, who is the person, what are they working on, what could I help them with, all of that sort of stuff. So it's really easy for me to keep nurturing those relationships. And those relationships are responsible for so much of my business success, particularly in the early days. But even to this day, so much of my growth in my business comes from referrals, recommendations, network, joint venture stuff, podcast swaps, all of those sorts of things. And it can take a little time and nurturing for people to feel like you're a good fit. A lot of people are just like me. I don't invite people onto my podcast lightly. If someone cold pitches to come on my podcast, they will not be invited on my podcast. But if I have someone come into my network and I get to know them and they get to know me, and we're still friends and we still think it's valuable, then they are far more likely to get invited onto my podcast. So hot tip out there if you want to be on my podcast, by the way. Anyway, number 5, touch base regularly. Set up a system to make sure that you do that. Number 6, connect others in. Now, this is another one that I don't always understand, particularly from the men in my life and the men in the business world in particular. But they keep their network very close to their chest, and they like to keep their best connections secret and protected. And I'm just not that kind of person. If I can introduce you to someone who I think will help you, or I think that it's going to be a mutually beneficial relationship, I will create that connection. I am not afraid to create that connection. I don't see my networking with other people as a loss for me, or it's not a competition. And so I am very good at connecting people in with others. So again, back to that example of the Sunshine Coast networking event that I went to, and my little bookkeeper, tax accountant friend who I made at that event, still to this day, if I meet someone who I think will be great for her, I connect them straight in, right? I'm a connector of connectors. Sometimes my network is not directly beneficial to me, but knowing a great web developer means that when someone in my network needs a good web developer, I've got a good recommendation. That's important to me, to be able to give people advice on who's good at this and who's good at that, and you know what to watch out for, or those sorts of things. And I love connecting people with each other rather than seeing my network as a hub and spoke model. Again, it's not just me in a series of one-to-one relationships. I see this as a giant web, a cloud or a web or something like that. And so I value being able to connect different people in my network with each other without me needing to be part of that conversation or part of that relationship long term or all the time. Like, I only hang out with that person when I hang out with that person type thing. Or they can't hang out together without me. I don't have FOMO. I don't have fear of missing out on the conversation, unless they're going to a party or something. But I am very happy to connect others in. And when I do that consistently, people in my network do the same, but also that's part of me being giving. And so that's adding to that give first mentality and the value that I'm putting into my network. So I know it's going to come back in swings and roundabouts at some point. So number 6 is connect others in with each other. Number 7 is nurture your top supporters. So this is an interesting one because sometimes, especially in hierarchical or patriarchal perceptions of relationships and businesses, we are told that we need to keep distanced from our customers, our audience, our clients. I'm up here, you're down here, so we are not peers. In hierarchical belief systems and ways of working in the business world, the masculine orientated, if you see someone as a peer, you can't be above them. Yeah. And you're climbing up the pyramid or the ladder, trying to clamber over each other. So if you have someone who follows you or is in your audience, you're incentivized to keep them beneath you in that kind of perception. Yeah. For me, I don't view my audience, my business, or my relationships that way. There's no hierarchy. Instead, I see it as this equal playing field, right? We're all on the same level. Yes, I might have more followers on social media than you, but you are far more adept at solving technology problems. We are all whole human beings. No one is better than anyone else. I don't see anyone in my audience as beneath me. I see everyone as a peer. Now, what that means is that if someone is following me as an audience member and I see them as a peer, I'm unafraid to create a deeper relationship and connection with that person and nurture that relationship without expectation of them becoming a paying client. Or if I have someone who is a paying client, like how many people have you worked with before and you're their client and they make you very conscious that you are beneath them, you are their client, you are not a peer over and over and over again. I've had that experience a lot in business. For me, if I have someone who is a client, that is a peer-to-peer relationship. It is not a dominant-subordinate relationship. It's not hierarchical. It is networked. It is relational. And so therefore, I can nurture those relationships and bring those people into my network as a peer without fear or worry that they'll respect me less, or they won't want to pay me anymore, or they'll never buy anything ever again because we're peers now. That's the fear-based part of hierarchical business structures and systems. And so for me, rather than seeing it as hierarchical, therefore keep distance, I try to create as little distance as possible between those people around me, and particularly for my top supporters. So whether those top supporters are paying customers or not, I want to nurture and reward that relationship because they might be a great supporter because they comment so consistently on my socials, or I know that they've referred people to me before, or they're just a brilliant client and whatever I offer, they buy. And so rather than keeping them below me, thinking that that will make them more likely to buy from me, I actually nurture that relationship and as much as possible make everyone feel like a peer. And that makes a significant difference to the way that those relationships are perceived, but also it makes a significant difference to the energetic exchange that happens as well. And so, that's a big one for me in terms of networking. And it also means my network is far more powerful than a network where you've got to keep people organized and separated. This person is above me and I want to be their peer, but this person is below me and they want to be my peer, but I'm not going to let them because that means that they won't buy from me anymore, or they won't see me as someone to be respected and admired anymore. Like, that's actually a thing. If we view every other human being as a peer, then we stop needing to be better than anyone. It's such a relief. We stop needing to earn more than anyone. We stop needing to compare ourselves to anyone. And instead, we just get to experience the joy and awesomeness of being able to support each other in our own zones of genius. So using this model means that I might have a client who's a website developer. Now, if they're my client and I'm teaching them how to grow their business, hierarchical business would say I could never buy from that person, because then that would put us on an equal playing field and they would no longer see me as a mentor. They would only see me as a peer, and that somehow is a bad thing. But in a flat model, in that networked model of seeing everyone as a peer, then they can buy from me for business mentoring and I can buy a website design off them. Because their zone of genius is web design, my zone of genius is business strategy. Why should we only ever work one way? Why does someone have to be on top? They don't. And so what ends up happening when we do this nurture and this peer-to-peer networking model, we end up being able to give far more value, but receive far more value in return as well. So that's number 7. And that's a bit of an out there one compared to what you may have heard before around networking and building relationships. They, like so many networking trainers and mentors out there, mostly male, but not all, will talk about networking up. Don't network down, network up. I think that's disgusting. And I think that devalues the very audience that you want to build more connection with. Your followers, your audience, your buyers. Why would you want to keep them down as a part of your strategy to grow your business. It doesn't actually make logical sense to me. I can see why some people might think that that makes sense, but that makes sense if you look at everything through fear and keeping things in a hierarchy. And I don't like hierarchy, so we're not going to do it. All right, number 8 is know and protect your boundaries. Now, with all of these things that I've said, be giving and be generous and everyone's a peer and all that kind of stuff, it may be easy for you to think then, well, that's going to be very overwhelming. It's going to take up a lot of my time. I'm going to spend 99% of my day doing free stuff for people in my network because I've got to be so giving. And therefore, when am I actually going to grow my business? Well, this is where having great boundaries in place is very effective and helpful. So yes, I'm very giving and helpful for my audience, but I don't teach them or coach them for free. That's my boundary. I don't do one-to-one mentoring for free just because we met at a networking event. So I'm very clear on my boundaries in that way. Yes, I love reciprocal relationships. I love going for coffee dates, but I also protect my time boundaries around that. I only accept 3 to 4 invitations a quarter to meet up in real life with an individual. And so therefore, because I'm clear on the numbers, I have to prioritize and I focus on those relationships that are going to be the most valuable for both of us, the ones that are going to be the deepest connection and the one where I see we've got a lot that we could do for each other. So that time boundary makes me prioritize. I don't do free one-on-one business coaching gives a boundary around giving away for free what I would normally charge for. Now, I will happily refer them off to people. I will happily talk to them about working together as a paid client if that's something that they want from me. And I will happily pay them for their services as well. And that's the whole two-way thing, right? So because I have boundaries around not giving away business mentoring for free, I also don't ask people to fix my website for free. I don't ask people to give me a quick acupuncture session for free, right? That's their business. And if we are friends, if we are in a network together, I'm the person who should be paying you the most, not the person who's paying you the least. Because I want to support you. And if the way that I want to support you is to help you with your business and I want your services, I pay for them. I absolutely pay for them. And this also works very well for protecting my boundaries from network buyers. And a network buyer for me is someone who sends me something or wants to gift me something for free just out of the blue. So I will often get, because I do have a larger audience these days, I will often get messages from people saying, oh my gosh, I create beautiful earrings and I've got these earrings and I think that they'll be perfect for you. They're so on brand for you. I'd love to gift them to you. And I actually have a boundary around that. I don't accept a lot of free gifts and I definitely don't accept them cold. And the reason why I do that now is because I once did that. It was literally earrings. And someone said that to me. And she's like, I just want to gift them to you. Please, I'm in your group. I just think you're so amazing. And I received the earrings. And like 2 days before the earrings arrived, she sent me a message saying, have you got the earrings yet? And I said, no, they haven't arrived yet. I'll let you know when they arrive. And then I got the earrings, collected the mail in the afternoon, and I didn't message them straight away that day. And then that night, they sent me a message saying, oh, it looks like you've received the earrings. You didn't tell me you got them. Have you got them? And I got the message the next morning and I said, oh, yes, I collected them from the post office yesterday afternoon. Thank you so much. They are lovely. I think they're really cute. They're probably not something that I would wear, for businessy stuff, but I can see they're really cute. I'd love to wear them to a cafe for brunch or something. And 3 days after that, I got another message saying, hey, just wondering, are you going to give me a shout out for my earrings that I gave you? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of the deal. And I was just really upfront. I just played dumb. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you mention something about me giving you a shout out? My understanding was you just wanted to send them to me as a gift. What did I misunderstand? And they're like, oh, no. Yeah, it is a gift. But, I just thought it would be nice if you gave me a shout out because you've got such a big audience. And I was like, well, if that's the reason that you sent it to me, I'm sorry. That's not something that I'm going to do. And it was really awkward. It was so awkward. But I wanted to keep my boundaries strong around that. And so Thus was born my I don't accept a lot of free gifts policy. Now, I do make some exceptions from time to time, especially people who are like very close in my network and they know something's going on with me at a certain time. Like I've had people reach out when I was recovering from my surgery and say, hey, like, I know you're recovering from your surgery, no strings attached. I do this really cool meditation thing. I'd love to send it through to you. You know, would you be interested? And if I am, I will say yes. But I also am very clear. I say, look, this sounds really amazing. Just to be clear, I'm not going to give free advertising or promotion in return. Is that okay? If not, I could buy a session if it's something I'm interested in. And most of those people say, oh, no, I don't want anything in return. This is absolutely a gift, because I know it will be of help to you right now. So that's really lovely. But 95% of offers that I get for free stuff, I will decline. But I have a really lovely way of declining them. So, and same with swaps. People ask me about swaps a lot as well. And I don't do exchanges, but I have a really great way of replying to them. So this will be in the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/341. Or write this down, because a lot of people use this, because I share this a lot. And whenever anyone asks me about boundaries in networking and freebies and all that kind of stuff, this is what I tell them. So if someone offers to send me something for free, like the earrings, if anyone cold offers me free earrings now, earrings must be a big part of my brand because I do get offered earrings a lot, I will say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I love beautiful earrings. Clearly, you know that about me. Send me the link. And if they look like something that would be a fit, I'll buy them. Right? So now it's like, well, I want to pay you, but I'm not obligated. And so I'd rather buy it and have it be my money be the energy exchange than my shout out be the energy exchange when I don't necessarily know if they're good, right? I don't necessarily, I'm not a beauty influencer, and giving shout outs for earrings over and over again, or, and doing it out of obligation never feels as honest and never feels as clean and boundary. So I always say, just send me the link. I'll check them out. If I love them, I'll buy them. Similarly, if someone says, I want to join your takeoff program, but I can't afford it, could I do a website for you? Could I redo your website? I want to do a website overhaul or something like that in return. Then I'll say to them, look, I don't do exchanges, but if I am in the market for a website update or something, I will say, but I am in the market for a website update. So why don't you send me through the details of what you offer and what you do and your portfolio and the price. And if it looks like a good fit, I'll buy it. No pressure on you to buy Takeoff. This is something I'm looking for right now. Or if I'm not looking for my website to be upgraded, I'll be upfront about that. Look, I don't do energy exchanges or anything along those lines. I'd love for you to come and join us in the Takeoff program. Right now, I'm not in the market for a website update, but if I am into the future, I'd love for you to submit a proposal. So it's really beautiful. It maintains the relationship. It's setting and reinforcing those boundaries nicely and with kindness. And often people will want to gift me something and I end up buying it. I had someone who wanted to gift me some clothes, and I was like, because I always talk about the fact that I'm 6'2", and she had a tall brand. And so she's like, I want to gift you some tall clothes. Would you like some clothes? And I was like, I don't really accept gifts like that, but I love finding new tall labels. Send me the link. And I ended up buying like $250 worth of clothes from her. And I still gave her a shout out. I'm in a couple of groups for tall women. And so in those groups, I took photos and shared, hey, I got these new things from this amazing thing. I bought them. I'm 6'2". You always give your measurements and your dims in a tall girls group, and we share recommendations with each other. So that was definitely of benefit to that person, but they didn't need to give me clothes for free. Yeah. So know and protect those boundaries, not just in what you're going to give, but also in what you're going to receive. As highly generous people, heart-centered people, the last thing we want to do is have unfair energy exchange on their part, like feeling like we've robbed someone and we haven't given enough in return. Guilt is not helpful. It just gives you heartburn. So I'm mindful of boundaries both ways. And I don't cross other people's boundaries in the way that I wouldn't want someone crossing mine. So I don't like people asking me for free stuff. So I don't ask other people for free stuff. I have a boundary around free mentoring and coaching. So I never take free mentoring and coaching. I don't take free stuff. I'd rather pay for it. I'm in a very, privileged position that I can pay for it, but I've actually found that my income grew and my capacity to buy stuff increased the more I said no to free stuff. So, something to think about. Number 9, I know I've got lots of them. This is a great episode, right? Very detailed. Number 9 is don't discount people too quickly. And I've had this happen to me over and over again where people have written me off because I didn't immediately return on investment in the network. I didn't immediately send them dozens of clients. But sometimes relationships take a little while to build, and sometimes people don't know who to refer through to you straight away. But once it's the reticular active system, that thing. Reticular activating system, where like if you buy a yellow Jeep, then all of a sudden you see yellow Jeeps. And so I meet people and they'll tell me what they do. Like, I sleep train children. I was like, I don't know anyone with toddlers or young children. But then because now I know someone who does sleep training, all of a sudden I have people saying, I'm really struggling to get my child to sleep. And so now I know who to refer them through to. So sometimes it takes a little while for it to return. And sometimes people are busy and people take a while to get to things. So, I guess it's a mindset thing and that expectations. But if you're really putting pressure on expectations and you need return quickly, then often some of the most fruitful relationships, you never get to experience them because you wrote that person off far too soon. So that's tip number 9. Tip number 10, this is the last of my tips, but I have a little bonus piece of advice for you. Tip number 10 is practice powerful requests. We need to practice asking for what we want and asking for what we need, but we don't just need to practice it because we're so hesitant to lean in and ask for help. We also need to practice it because when you're not skilled or practiced at asking, the way you ask can be clunky and it can be difficult for people to say yes. So one of the things that I ask whenever I'm making a powerful request, let's say I'm asking someone to come on my podcast, I don't send them 6 forms to fill in order to say yes to being on my podcast. I first make the request, laying out how many people will listen to the podcast. I distribute it in the Heart Center community of 35,000 people. I share it on my social media 3 times. We'll tag you. We'll do link backs to your website. So I lay out all the benefits for them. And all they need to do to say yes is, if you're interested, send me through your calendar and I'll book in with you, or get someone in your team to reach out. Because for people who are in that echelon of business, I know they're not managing their own calendar. They're not booking their own gigs. They're not the one who's going to fill in the form. So why am I sending it to them? So I make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. And if there's things that I need once they say yes, I ask for that second. I get the yes first before I ask for the next piece. But I also, in asking for the next piece, make it as easy as possible for them as well. So practice those powerful requests and practice making it easy, smooth, streamlined, being clear on what you need and what you want, because that does take a bit of practice and nuance. And if you go from I never ask for anything to I'm asking 60 people today to platform me on their social media, the way that you ask is going to be a little bit clunky, and you're not going to understand some of the nuance. Just like you might not have realized that if you cold pitch me to be on my podcast, you'll get a no. If I don't know who you are, if we don't have a relationship, if I've never heard of you before, it's a no. It's a no. It's easy for us to build a relationship. It's easy for me to get to know you. And most people who follow me on Instagram or Facebook, for example, I go and check them out. Still to this day, even with thousands and thousands of followers, I still go and check everyone out because I love getting to know people's businesses. But like, I need to see your name a few times before you ask to come on my podcast, not just the first time. Also, I don't say yes to cold pitches from people who send someone on their behalf. So I'll often get a pitch that says, hi, I would like to introduce to you such and such. I think that'd be a great match for the insert podcast name here. Podcast, right? Sometimes they forget to put the name of the podcast in there. And I know that they've engaged someone to go and pitch to hundreds of thousands of podcasts for them. I'm just a cog in their machine. Is that going to be a reciprocal relationship? No. So I just say no. I just say a direct no to those sorts of things. And a lot of big name podcasters, I'm not a big name podcaster, but a lot of big name podcasters have the same policy. If someone else is reaching out on your behalf and I have never heard of you before, it is a flat no. Cold pitches are a flat no. And, people do that for a reason because we're seen as a target. The bigger your audience gets, the more people want to get access to your audience. Now, lucky for you, being part of the heart-centered audience, part of the heart-centered community, I give you direct access to my audience every day. It's the Heart Center group. I give you an opportunity to promote every Tuesday, right? So I have already built in, like, you get access to my audience readily, instantly, simply by joining the Heart Center community. Now I'm telling a lot of stories in this podcast, but I think it's very helpful. I've even had people reach out to me because they see the number of people in the Heart Center community and the dollar signs in their eyes. So I've had people reach out to me who are not members of the Heart Center community, but who have reached out to me and said, hi, I absolutely love that you're working with heart-centered, soul-driven entrepreneurs, and I think I can really add value to your audience. Would you be willing to promote my upcoming webinar? And I'm like, wait, you want me to promote your webinar when you haven't joined and promoted it yourself? You want me to do your marketing for you? And you're not even part of the community? Like, it blows my mind, some of the asks that I get. And of course, my answer is, you don't need me to promote it. Just join the group and promote it. Like, do that. Some people get a bit snippy with me about that. And they're like, yeah, but if I promote it in your group, it's not going to get as much reach and it doesn't have as much gravitas as if you promote it in your group. Like, yeah, I know, but that's the whole point of having a community like this, is that the people who are the most consistent and give the most value and are the most trustworthy are the ones who get the most reach in that community because they are contributing to the community. The Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs community is not some random pond that you can just go fish without ever contributing to, right? It's a community. And it works beautifully. It is so fair. It is so brilliant because those people who are the most active, who are the most giving, those people who are the most consistent, who build lots and lots of trust, they're the ones who get the best reach and have the best success in the community. It's like, it's such a true meritocracy based on a combination of merit based on your expertise and merit based on your contribution to the community. And I love it. It's so fair. My moon sign is Libra. It's so fair. And I love that so much. Okay, so they are my 10 tips for building an epic business network. Now, you might think, wow, they're very good tips, Tash. Like, surely you couldn't top it from there. But there's one thing that underpins all of this, and that is critical to being able to do all of these 10 things. And that is being in the room. Just like the heart-centered community is not a place where you can just jump in, fish a bunch of leads and jump out. Similarly, building a network doesn't happen that way. You don't just magically get access and build a network at a distance. You need to be in the room. So things like being part of the Heart Centered community and being active in there is powerful in building your network. Another thing that we do in the Heart Centered community is we have meetups, and the people who facilitate and run and put the effort into organizing those meetups see a lot of benefit because they're seen as a leader inside the community. Similarly, there are other rooms that you need to be in order to access the kinds of people who are in that room. So I talk about this a lot with the Heart Centered Business Conference. So many people wish that they had biz besties and a strong network and lots of friends, people who are like-hearted and who are heart-centered as well. And I've created a conference where that's exactly who is in the room. And yet, I, again, get lots of people saying they don't go to conferences unless they're speaking on stage. But you've got to be in the room to be selected to be on stage. Most of the speakers for the Heart Centered Business Conference, unless they're already big industry leaders or big names, the people who I invite to be a speaker at the Heart Centered Business Conference have been to the Heart Centered Business Conference as an attendee. And it still gobsmacks me when I tell people that in response to them saying, I get a lot of very brash, like very self-confident requests or demands to be on stage at the Heart Centered Business Conference. I recently just had someone who said, oh my gosh, I've just discovered your conference and I am so excited to gift your audience with my presence. I need you to know I'm going to be on that stage and speaking to people at that conference because I have so much to add value. I have so much to give to the people in that room. And I said, well, the best way for you to be selected as a speaker for the Heart Centered Business Conference is to buy a ticket because, one, we have our Pitch Fest opportunity, but also when I select speakers for next year, the first place I look is who was in the room this year. And the amount of people who say, oh, I don't go to conferences as an attendee, I only go as a speaker, just astounds me. There must be someone out there teaching that as a strategy. And it blows me away whenever I get that audacious response, like good on them for standing in their power, whatever, but they will never speak on stage at my conference. So if that's the outcome that they want, they're going the wrong way about getting it. But the reason why I do it this way is because for the Heart Centered conference, it's got a very different vibe to other conferences. There's no selling from the stage. It's very deeply connected. It's round tables. We facilitate discussions. It is a peer-to-peer relationship. There's no hierarchy. And so people need to have experienced that in a lot of cases to really get it and understand. In order to be a great speaker at conference, they need to understand conference. They need to understand our community. And I don't pick people to be on stage lightly. That's an important job, is curating the speaker lineup for the Heart Centered Business Conference. So just like being in the room at conference increases your likelihood of being a speaker at conference, being in the room at a lot of these things is the first step to building your network. If you never go to events, you're going to have less network. You're going to have a smaller network. If you're never in the room, if you never buy the ticket to the dance, you won't have as many dance partners. That's just the reality of it. And some of those rooms have a fee. You need to pay to be in the room. Heart Centered Business Conference, you got to pay to be in the room. But is it worth it? Oh my goodness, yes it is. Similarly, going to events, you'll have to pay for them. Sometimes being in the room means joining a mastermind with people who are, a few steps ahead of you in your business, or who you would normally have seen as quite a leader. But in order for them to see you as a peer, in order for you to build a peer-to-peer relationship, you need to join the thing that they're joined. So that's where joining masterminds, joining courses, being an active part of communities is effective and gives you the opportunity to do these 10 things. You can't do these 10 business network growth things if you're never in the room with other people, whether that be the digital virtual room or the physical room. So what I would be doing, if you think this is very exciting, you do know that building your network is an important part of your business growth, this is something you really want to do, then the first question to ask before you do any of these 10 things is, which rooms do I need to be in? And which rooms do I prioritize? Because not all rooms are created equal. And sometimes you need to be in there to realize that it's not a great one. But being in the room consistently is critical. When I first started my business, I made a commitment before I made a cent. I made a commitment that I would go to 2 conferences or larger events every year. 1, because as an extrovert, that really lights me up. But 2, because I know in business, it's not just what you know, it's who you know. And I was fresh to the online business world. I only had one person that I knew who had an online business. Everyone else was just like I'd read their book or something, but I didn't have a relationship with any of them. I only had one friend who had an online business. And so I knew I needed to make friends. I needed to build my network. And so being physically in the room for me was something that I needed to prioritize. I went to business networking breakfasts and I went to those, keynote speaker events, and I went to conferences, and I joined masterminds, and I joined courses, and I got to know my peers, because those relationships are critical. And they have had such an epic impact on my business growth that it's immeasurable financially. It is immeasurable financially. And if you think about all the things you're doing to grow your audience, it's like it's an accelerant, because you're doing all the things to grow your audience and find people online. And then you've got this network and posse of people who are also contributing to that. So it just multiplies the impact of all of your marketing and sales activities to have this beautiful network of people who are helping and you to do the same and want to see you succeed. Because we know a rising tide lifts all ships. Okay, so I know this episode is likely going to be over an hour. I can't see the timer on this, but I reckon we've hit about an hour. I'm going to close it up there, but I did want to go into this one in depth because I think it is critical and we underestimate the value of our network. And as I talked about in the start of the episode, we also have seen networking done really sleazily and really grossly. And so we've decided that networking is not for us, but networking's not the problem. It's the way that you network or the type of networking that you've seen in the past. So hopefully this has got you excited and inspired to build your network. Hopefully you're going to do that exercise of writing down being in the room. And if you do want to be in the room, there are 2 rooms that I would invite you to join in particular. One is the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs Facebook community. If you're not there, come and join us. If you're there but you're very quiet and you're a lurker, be more active because you're building your network. And then the second one is the Heart-Centered Business Conference. We have conference in 2023 is in May and in 2024 is in September. You'll find the link and all the details of conference over with the show notes today at tashcorbin.com/341. You can also go to my website and click on the events tab to see any other rooms that you might be able to be part of so that you can build your network so that you can grow your business as well. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. And thank you for joining me for this extended episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.